How's it going?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Great, man. Great. Talking about Captain America: The First Avenger today. Pretty excited. It's one of my favorite Marvel movies,
You
if
know, when
not
I
my
saw
favorite.
this, I saw this in the theaters originally when it first came out, and I really did not like it.
Hmm.
It felt so disconnected to me, but that must have just been the mood that I was in when I saw the movie because I rewatched it once before and liked it a lot then, or at least a lot better, and then rewatched it again last night and really enjoyed it.
Well, I think part of that is this movie is temporarily out of time with Iron Man. So Iron Man is happening in the modern day, and then we jump back to 1941 or so, 42 in World War II. And so this movie is sort of out of sync with the time period, and all the characters that we're going to see, we won't see again. We'll see Peggy again, and we'll see Steve, of course, and we'll see the Red Skull, and we'll see, of course, Barnes. But for the most part, like, these characters are gone. So it's like the movie's asking you to invest, even though a lot of these characters won't be in the regular series in the other movies. But I feel the same way. But when I first saw this, I loved it, mainly because I love the director. You know who the director is?
No, tell me.
He is. I just had the notes here. He directed. His name is Joe Johnston. He directed The Rocketeer, which
Okay,
is
cool.
yeah, which is it's a great movie. So when I heard that he was going to direct Captain America, I was excited because the Rocketeer's aesthetic was so cool, and he definitely
Right.
brought that aesthetic to Captain America. I think Captain America is the perfect Marvel movie. It hits all the beats. I have very few complaints about this movie at all. Like, I think Chris Evans does a fantastic job as Steve Rogers, and
All right,
I
before we
like
get
all
too
of them.
much into it, I want to rewind a little bit.
Sure.
So the last episode we had was about Thor, and at the end, we were talking about the post credit scene, and you said that that was really getting you amped up for Captain America. But
I did.
not being a comic book nerd, I don't see how you're making the connection from that to Captain America. What is it
Okay,
about
so
that post credit scene that got you psyched for this?
Okay, so at the end of Captain America, the scientist and Loki are looking at something, and it's the cosmic cube. Okay, and the cosmic cube is it's hard to explain. So if you look at comics, lots of comics has different relics. So you have all these different kind of relics throughout the Marvel universe. You have Thor's hammer, you have Captain America's shield. In the DC universe, you have the Green Lantern ring. So you have tons of relics, and these relics you try to find them to gain some kind of power. And so actually, it's interesting because once they show the cosmic cube in the post credit scene, I realized that the Marvel movies are going to start going deep into the lore. And at one point, the Red Skull has, I think twice actually, the Red Skull has possession of this cosmic cube in the comics, and he uses it against Captain America. And then once you see that, then I was excited because I was like, okay, I know what the Marvel movies are going to do. They're going to kind of deep dive into some of this more obscure lore, which they're doing a lot more now, of course. But that was the first sign, so that's why I got excited because I was like, okay, I see the cosmic cube. I know the Red Skull used it in the comics, and that means Captain America's going to look at some of that stuff. I did not know that the cosmic cube was going to end up being the space gem, and we can talk more about that in a little bit. But that's why I was excited.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I had no idea about any of that. That's cool. All right, so you ready for some questions about
I'm
the
ready.
Captain America?
I am ready. Hit me with them.
All right. Steve Rogers says I can do this all day, at least twice in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that he says that repeatedly, kind of throughout the MCU. Is that something that he says in the comics, or is that just something that we get treated to in the MCU?
That's just the MCU thing. I think it was fun. It kind of gave him some character, and we hear him say this in Captain America. He says it twice. He says it in Iron Man: Civil War, and he says it in Infinity in the end game, but he says it in a kind of a joking way. So no, we never hear about it again until we never hear it again with those sections. But no, it's never in the comics. You never hear that kind of stuff.
Okay, all right, cool.
But it kind of fits into his character. I mean, Captain America. The idea is Steve Rogers deserves to be Captain America because of his spirit. It's not necessarily that he got this super serum and he's super tough. It's more about his like ability to be a good person. And the idea is if he wasn't born kind of scrawny and skinny, he would have never appreciated power. And thus, when he got the super soldier serum, he would have abused it. So those same themes fit in the comics and in the movie. So I thought that was well done by the comics. I mean, by the movie. I think they did a really good job getting us ready to see that kind of stuff and working on his character.
Yeah, and that's pretty much exactly what Dr. Erskine says in the movie too, right? It's like that's why I chose you. Is this is going to amplify the serum is going to amplify whatever's inside of you. So he wanted to be very selective on kind of the mindset and the experiences of the person that gets the serum.
Yep. But in the comics, you didn't really, that wasn't a thing. I mean, the super soldier serum in the comics was just something you stabbed him with, and that was it. It wasn't, they did a lot more background work in the movies than they did in the comics. Like, I think the comics definitely did some retcon stuff. They kind of filled in the gaps later in the comics. But when Captain America first came out, there wasn't a whole lot of that.
So was Steve Rogers like this kind of scrawny?
Yes, 100%. He was definitely scrawny, and the super soldier serum gave him powers. But the speech by Erskine and the train and stuff like that wasn't in the comics at all. He was in the army, but it wasn't like they did. Like, there's a lot of different things that they kind of streamlined for the movie that I thought worked really well.
Okay. There's a newspaper headline that stood out to me. Some scene in the movie, there's a couple of characters that are reading newspapers, and the camera kind of focuses on one. It says Nazis retake Zitomir.
Mm-hmm.
Is Zitomir another location from the comic books? Kind of like, God, what's that one that you said was in the X-Men comics a lot?
Like Madripoor?
Madripoor, yeah. Is Zitomir kind of like that?
I don't know, Mike. I don't know. I don't think so. Okay. I never heard of it. I guess not. If it is, I never heard of it. It's very obscure. I thought so at the beginning of the movie, the Red Skull does an incursion into Norway, right? To get the artifact, to get the relic. And I thought I thought that headline was just kind of, hang on for a second. I know I hate doing this, but I'm going to see. How do you spell Zitomir?
Zhitomir.
Ziot.
Zitomir.
Okay, I totally butchered that spelling. There you go. That is an actual place in Ukraine. So maybe that was okay. Yeah. Maybe that was. Maybe that's historically maybe that's historically accurate.
Yeah. It sounded like a made up name to me. Apologies to everybody in the
It's Ukraine. Actually, I'm reading Wikipedia real quick, and there definitely were some battles in the Zitomir Beastchef offense operation in World War II. It was from December to January 1944. So maybe they were just giving us a nice little timeline there.
Okay. I was really looking forward to you regaling us about all of the stories about Zitomir in the comics.
Zitomir sounds awesome.
Yeah.
But no, that's no comic reference relevance.
Right. Okay. So the Red Skull says the Tesseract was the jewel of Odin's treasure room in this movie. That kind of confirms the question that I asked you about the blue object that the Destroyer was protecting in Thor is definitely the same Tesseract.
Yes, 100%.
It looked a little bit different in the beginning of the Thor movie as it did at the end of the Thor movie, so that's why I wasn't sure, but that quote confirms it.
Yeah, and so they're doing a lot of heavy lifting again here. They're using we're in outer space with Thor. Thor has brought outer space into the Marvel universe, and we can use him to talk about the Tesseract, to talk about the Infinity Gems, to bring more space stuff. I think the MCU's run on all cylinders right now, and bringing in Thor was a really good move. I think the movie wasn't that great, but I do think bringing in Thor as the character, as a comic book character for the movies, as some lore, did a really good job. And so in the comics, in the original comics, Odin never had the Infinity Gems. He's never had the Tesseract. But in the movies, it would make sense that someone as powerful as Odin would have these things, right? And so, it's real good stuff, real fun stuff right now.
All right. I don't really have a question about this, but just tell us about Agent Carter.
Okay, that's really good. So I did some research, and Agent Carter, Peggy Carter, is from the comics. She is definitely from the comics. I have a date right here. She appeared in Marvel Comics in 1966. And her name is Dr. Margaret Alexandra Peggy Carter. So 1966, she's had some adventures, right? Tales of Suspense, 1975. She also had some appearances in Tales of Suspense in 1966, Captain America 1973, and then of course she had a modern day talent in 2019. So Peggy Carter is around, and it's really interesting. It's a comic book, so there's tons of different stories and stuff about her. But from my comic book readings, I've only known Sharon Carter. And when I originally watched this movie, I thought they created Peggy Carter as a way to eventually bring in Sharon Carter, but no, they didn't make her up. She's actually a comic book character, so I thought that was cool. There's not much to say about Peggy Carter. Unfortunately, in comic books, female characters don't have a lot of backstory. They don't have a lot of history. But I think in the movie, they did an excellent job with Peggy Carter. I mean, she's still a love interest, so you have to kind of roll your eyes. But I think she was tough. She was interesting. I like that she was British. I thought the actress was really great. The actress, who is she again? She is
Haley.
I really like her. Haley Atwell, yeah, I love her. She's great. She's always fun to watch on TV and screen. So, yeah, I think they did a great job with Peggy Carter. And what I don't like is what they've done with Sharon Carter. I think that's been a problem. We'll talk way more about that when we get into the other comic movies. But Peggy Carter is fantastic. And it's a tragic story, right? Because, well, it's not tragic. If you look at what Marvel has done, and specifically what the Russo brothers did with Civil War, Infinity War, and Endgame, they did a very good job closing some loops. And the idea that we're heartbroken that Steve won't have this last dance with Peggy, but then he'll end up going back in time to be with her in the last movie. I thought that was excellent. It's an excellent work. And so Captain America, the movie, is sort of like I know Iron Man's been out. We've seen Thor. But I think Captain America the movie is the first thread line, the first movie that's really combining all these movies together and really gelling everything together. Like, we could not have a Thor movie. Oh, let me rephrase that. You don't have to watch Thor and to understand the Marvel movies. You can skip Thor altogether. You can skip Iron Man 2 altogether. You can't skip Captain America. You have to watch this movie if you want to understand the Marvel movies. This is a must-have movie.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right, we talked about it a little bit already, but what's Cap's origin story? You said he is actually in the comics. He is a scrawny guy. Is there anything else about his origin story? Anything that differs from the movie?
No, the movies did really. I think the movie did a very good job characterizing Steve Rogers than the comics did. Remember, the comics came out in 1941, so it's a long time ago. And these comics didn't have a whole lot of time, so they were really short stories. So it was kind of quick. But yeah, the movie kind of developed him more than the comics has. But there's a couple of different characteristics about Steve Rogers, the little scrawny kid, that I think is interesting. First, he is from Brooklyn, so he's always been from Brooklyn. So that's a comic reference. Also. Okay. Guess what his talent is. Now, you saw the movie, right? You just watched the movie, right?
I did, yeah.
Okay, there's a scene where he's doing something very interesting that's kind of that character, but not really.
Yeah, I think I know what this is.
What is it? What is it?
You know, I told you I read the IMDb trivia
Yeah.
after watching movies a lot, so I think that reinforced this. Drawing. He's
Yes.
an artist. Yeah.
He is. That's so funny. I read a Captain America comic a long time ago, and Captain America, Steve Rogers, went to his apartment and was drawing. He was working on some art for an ad firm or something. And then he has to go be a superhero. So he had a secret identity in the comics for a while. And his day job was being an artist. I thought that was so clever when they just showed him doing that sketch. Because like that's just like no one else, I guarantee you, like hardly anyone else remembers or understands that from the comics he is an actual artist. And so I thought the movie doing that was just so much fun. I kind of wish they did more with that throughout the MCU because Captain America, Steve Rogers, was as soon as he got the super soldier serum, that's pretty much all he was doing was being a superhero.
Right.
And so I guess that's true. Like if you were like, took the serum, became super big and super powerful, got frozen in the Arctic and then got revived, you wouldn't have a whole lot of time to like have a personality or have like a personal life. But I kind of wish they kind of spoke more on that. I kind of feel like the Marvel movies don't really spend enough time talking about how Steve Rogers is kind of like a tragic character. He's out of time. He's very young. If you think about how young he is, but he's had a lot of experiences.
Yeah, with Steve's drawings, they mention it a couple of times in the movie. But you're right. They don't really touch on it in any of the sequels, as far as I can remember.
When did he? They did mention when he rescued Bucky and the other army guys that he kind of looked at the map and then described it back to them. Oh, he designed his costume.
Yeah, okay. That's where I was going. He's like, this costume's growing on me. The one that the government threw together for him for all the stage plays.
Then he gives not Tony Stark, his father.
He tells Howard Stark. He's like, I've got some ideas about the costume.
Yeah. Oh, okay, yeah, that's great. So that's a movie. The movie's doing a couple of different things. It's showing that he's an artist. Then they're using that to kind of explain how he could design his own costume, and it's also being true to the comics. Doing good work. Yeah, this movie's working, man. It's really good.
Yeah, and he had great recall of that map, like you said. So.
Yeah. All right, hit me again.
All right. While we're on it, we brought up Howard Stark. This isn't really a question for you, but just something to talk about. There's a different actor playing Howard Stark in this movie.
Yep, he's a younger actor.
Yeah, younger actor. I did a little bit of research. As far as I can tell, he only plays Howard Stark in this movie and the Peggy Carter TV series.
Yep. So Dominic Hooper is his name. This is actually the third Howard Stark. There was, I think, in the first movie there was a different Howard Stark, and in the second movie in Iron Man 2, the first Iron Man, I'm sorry, they had a different Howard Stark, and then they had a different one.
I didn't even remember him being in there.
Okay. They had a couple. They just had a couple photos of Howard Stark.
Gotcha. Right.
And then they had a whole different actor in Iron Man 2, and the guy who played him in Iron Man 2 would keep that character throughout the Marvel movies.
Right. He comes back in all those sequels, except for this one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Howard Stark is definitely in the comics all over the place. His connections to Captain America are not like what the movies did at all. Like Howard Stark did not design the Captain America shield, none of that stuff. So like that's just them trying to tie some threads between him and Tony Stark. But no, he's not in the Howard Stark is definitely in the comics a lot. But I think the movies like the father-son relationship between Tony Stark and Howard Stark. And they like the idea that Captain America knew Howard Stark, that Howard Stark was part of the SHIELD, all that kind of stuff. They're doing some really good work with all these characters, threading them all together. But in the comics, that didn't happen at all. The comics are a lot messier. And you have to understand with the comics, you have multiple writers, multiple artists, multiple editors, and they're all trying to do one thing: sell comic books. So they didn't really think about threads and storylines and stuff back then like we think of them now. I think they're just like, okay, we have a cool story idea. Let's do another cool story idea. This art's really great, and then they'll get somebody new. And so I think about it's sort of like you had remember that game as a kid where one person in the room would say something in a person's ear, and then they would repeat it, and then it would get to the end, and it would be something completely different.
Right. Yeah, the whisper game or the telephone game.
Yeah. Yeah. The comic books are definitely a telephone game. Now they do have editors and stuff keeping track of all the lore and keeping track of all the canon stuff, but it gets really convoluted, and sometimes you have to fix stuff. But so the movies are streamlining all this stuff, so kind of keep that in mind.
Okay, so since Howard Stark did not create the Cap shield in the comics, who did? Is it someone significant?
Not somebody. No, not really. I have some notes here about the shield because I knew you'd ask about the shield. So I talked about this when we talked about Falcon and Winter Soldier. The Captain America shield that in the movie is 100% vibranium. In the comics, it is an alloy. It's vibranium, steel, and a unknown catalyst called proto-adamantium. Now, in the comics, adamantium is the strongest metal ever. Guess who else has adamantium walking
Wolverine.
around? Very good. And so the comics kind of like having that, Captain America's shield is vibranium and adamantium. And of course, there's a comic book cover where Wolverine is slashing Captain America's shield and there's sparks flying. It just looks really cool. It's a really cool cover. Maybe I'll find that for you. So it bothered me in the movie that there was a vibranium shield that's worth millions of dollars, probably, right? Under a workbench that Cap just accidentally sees, and then Howard's like, oh yeah, that's all of vibranium we have. Like, first of all, if that's all the vibranium you have, you probably going to use it for testing or something else, or some kind of circuitry or something. If that's all you have, you're not going to make a shield out of it. You're just not. You're not going to do that. You're just not going to do it. And so that is probably the only thing that bothers me about the movie. But I like the fact that he does find it, and I like the fact that it's vibranium. But in the comic books, this is an alloy, and it's a little more complicated. He's given this, the U.S. government just makes it for him and gives it to him at some point, and he just keeps it forever.
Okay.
The guy who designed it was in the comics. His name is Dr. Myron. That's all it says. But yeah, it's just like it was never like a big deal. It was just like, here you go, Captain America. Here's a new shield. He's like, hey, thanks, and that's it. But then it's iconic. But they have done things in the comics over time to explain the shield more. There's a storyline that I read from a recent Black Panther comic where Captain America and Black Panther's father, another version of Black Panther or another Black Panther, fight, and Nazis are trying to take over Wakanda. It's a whole thing. But at the end of it, and it's a really good comic, I might put in the notes. But at the end of it, they give Captain America some vibranium and says, hey, you might want to make a shield out of this. And he's like, oh, thanks. And then he gives that to the government, and then they make the shield. So they've done some retcon work. But the idea that shield, like, they could, I don't know how they would have done a better job of introducing that shield. It doesn't make any real sense that something that's rare and valuable as vibranium would just be given to a soldier to use. It kind of makes sense. But I don't know. That's sometimes when you write things, you gotta kind of cover your eyes and hope it works out. And this is one of those things.
Yeah, but did you see the other shields that Howard Stark had laid out?
Yeah, they were really cool. There was one that he could hold with a gun, and there was one they were all terrible. It's actually funny. In the comics, so in the movie, did you remember in the movie where he had that kind of like angular triangle shield or reverted V shield?
Right. Yeah. There's a couple of different kind of foreshadowing of Cap getting the shield later on in the movie. There's at the very beginning before he gets the serum, he's still trash can lid getting beat up in the alley. The car door. Right. The car. So he's chasing a cab or something. Car door comes off of it. He uses the car door as a shield. The car door has a star and a circle on it. Mm-hmm. Then there's the one that you were just describing, the shield that the government gave him that looks like a It's like a badge, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
A shield-shaped shield.
Yeah, in the comics, that was his first. So in the older comics, in the 1940s comics, that was his first shield, and then he got the circle shield later, and then of course he was frozen in time for a while. Right. So that was that. So the fact that he had two different shields in the movie was comically accurate.
Oh, cool! I didn't know about that. All right, is that enough to talk about the shield?
I can talk about the shield all day, but yeah, I think that's enough talk for now.
All right, what about SSR?
I want a replica of the shield. I'm going to get one at some point when I have like a bigger apartment, a bigger house to live in. Yeah, because it's just awesome. It's like I don't know why.
Where are you going to hang it?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. It had to be. I've been asking my wife for a while to get to let me have like a little game room type deal. I don't know if I ever get that, but if I ever had a game room, I'd do that.
Yeah, that'd be a good spot for it.
All right, next question.
Yeah, SSR what is that? Is that from the comics?
No.
Okay, so just some made up thing from the movie.
Yeah,
totally insignificant.
It's significant because they're trying to create the idea that the first ideas of S.H.I.E.L.D. began way back in the 40s. It's significant. Okay. It's significant for the comic movies, but not for the comics itself. No.
So that makes me. I have a vague memory. So has Marvel made it so that in the MCU, S.H.I.E.L.D. was originally started by Peggy Carter?
I gotta do some more digging on that. I'm sure that the Marvel comics have retconned it to make it so she did that. I know the Marvel movies do that, but when I was reading comics, the government created S.H.I.E.L.D. It was an easier fix. Like, this is S.H.I.E.L.D. We need S.H.I.E.L.D. There you go.
Okay, but in the movies, it was Peggy Carter. I'm not getting that confused with Doctor Who or anything.
No. Yeah, so you're correct. So At some point in the movies, Howard Stark. So if you watch Captain America: Winter Soldier, they have like a plaque, and it shows General Chester Phillips, who was played by what's his face, that old general guy. Hang on, Tommy Lee Jones. So they show Tommy Lee Jones, They show Dominic Cooper, and they show Peggy Carter, Haley Atwell. They show their pictures, and they said established S.H.I.E.L.D. at this date. So it's assumed that those three guys created S.H.I.E.L.D. After Captain America disappeared. And it kind of makes sense, right? Because Captain America's carrying the shield, they create S.H.I.E.L.D., that kind of deal.
Okay. All right, here's another, not a question, but just, man, I was watching this last night, and this quote is powerful. What's the name of the doctor? Dr. Erskine?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right, so Dr. Erskine's got Steve Rogers sat down on a cot. This is like the day before they inject him with serum, turn him into Captain America. And he says to Steve, so many people forget that the first country the Nazis invaded was their own.
Yeah, that was great. That's a great quote.
That hit me like a ton of bricks, or like Captain America's shield.
Yeah, Stanley Tucci, man, killed it. And that scene on the bed with them two is probably one of my favorite movie scenes, period. It's like up there in the top 10. It's so honest. And we haven't even really talked about the special effects wizardry they're doing to make Chris Evans look small. You know what I'm saying? Like, right. It looks perfect. It always looks perfect. Right. And I'm like, God, how did they do this? And so again, like that scene with Erskine and Steve just being like honest guys talking about problems and being scared, not knowing what to do the next day and stuff like that worked really well. And Stanley Tucci nailed it. And so that definitely he definitely talks about the origins of the Red Skull. So that was a good scene too. Johann Shmidt.
Right. I don't really know how they did Little Steve. I have a vague idea. Because you're right. It looks perfect. Like usually with effects like that, you can see there's a little imperfection, but it really looks like it's Little Steve Rogers for the first little bit of the movie.
It's stunning.
But what they did apparently is every time there's Little Steve in the frame, they shot each of those scenes 4 different times.
What?
Yeah, they shot it once with Chris Evans. Shot it once without Chris Evans. Once with a smaller double. What was the 4th time? And I think the 4th time is they shot it with Chris Evans kind of hunched down and with marks kind of indicating where lines of sight should be.
Okay, wow.
But can you imagine shooting every scene 4 times?
It works. They have to. It works.
Yeah, it definitely works.
It's
very convincing.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's just so good. Like that's something that we could never have done until then. You know, like
right.
the technology wasn't there, and the fact that like the reason why the Marvel movies are so good is because the technology is there to do all this crazy stuff, and that we couldn't have done it. Like if you look back to Lord of the Rings, if Lord of the Rings never got made, we would never have had all this stuff because they did so many innovative things with special effects with those movies.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And then you got the Matrix and everything else. So every once in a while, a movie comes along and just kind of reinvents how you can use technology, and it's just so impressive. It's just amazing.
All right, in this movie, Hydra goes rogue. They kind of break away from Hitler.
Yeah.
Is that MCU thing or comics thing?
MCU thing. In the comics, Hydra is just a generic fascist terrorist group. So like Cobra, you know? It's like Cobra, AIM, you know, it's just kind of cool to have like these guys that you can beat up. And that's really important. You have to have people.
Were they a stand-in for the Nazis or?
I think you could say that. Yeah, because I think when Hydra was kind of introduced in the 60s, it was sort of a way to kind of, because there's no more Nazis necessarily, right? So you have to have some kind of bad guys to fight. So let's make Hydra. So yeah. I think the MCU did a very good job explaining where Hydra came from. In the comics, the Red Skull was never a part of Hydra. He never led Hydra. He had very little dealings with Hydra.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so all that was all MCU. And that's fine. I mean, if you never read a comic book, you wouldn't care. And I guarantee you, if you asked 10 comic book fans if Red Skull and Hydra are connected, they say, yeah. But I did some research to double check, and no, Red Skull was never a part of Hydra at all.
Yeah, I mean, not being a comic book reader, I guess I don't care, but it seems. I mean, he's got the. Is the Red Skull in the comics? Is he German?
The Red Skull in the comics is definitely German. He's definitely a Nazi. He wore a mask. He didn't have the Red Skull at first. He didn't have a Red Skull. He wore a mask. But he was just the Red. It's actually interesting in the comics. The Red Skull. There are a handful of villains in the comics that you just know when they show up, things are about to get real bad. Dr. Doom, Galactus, Red Skull, they are one of them. And so Red Skull is a perfect villain for Captain America. And Red Skull is just a fascist. Like, he's just real bad dude, just not a good dude. And so whenever he showed up in the comic books, it was just like, oh, the Red Skull's here. Oh, God. He's like, so they did a very good job. Like, I actually think the MCU Red Skull is more palatable than the comics one. I think the comics one is like a guy you don't want to be around. You don't want to see him get away. And in the MCU, he's just like, okay, this guy's a bad guy, but there's some reasons behind it. So I can give a little more empathy to him, but it's so funny.
Okay. What were his reasons? I'm trying to think.
Well, I think Johann Schmidt, part of his reasons in the movie, played excellently by Hugo Weaving, I think part of what he wanted was just to control like the world. Like a lot of really bad guys. Like if you look at like Hitler, or you look at let's use Red Skull. I think they think, I know what's best for the humanity. I know the best way to help them. The only way I can help them is by killing a lot of them. And like it's warped logic, but it makes somewhat sense if you. I know people will think, oh God,
I think Thanos was a little bit more.
They worked really hard on that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Thanos did a better job of selling it to me than Red Skull did. To be honest with you,
100%, 100%. And like, to be honest with you, like some people just don't believe that democracy is a good way for people to govern themselves. They just don't think it works. And so Red Skull is one of those people who just thinks, well, people are stupid. Somebody has to lead them. I'll do it, and I'll make it happen. So that's kind of what his reasoning is, which is interesting. I think Captain America could have done a little better job selling that. Like, it's too easy just to throw Nazis into a movie and that's their motivations. I'm a Nazi, like that's what we do.
Right.
No, like there needs to be a little bit more to that. Because people just don't wake up thinking I'm going to be a terrible person. But again, they did better with Thanos than they did with Red Skull. But even though I loved Hugo Weaving in this movie, I thought he was fantastic.
So we jumped ahead a little bit in my questions, but let's talk more about Red Skull. Is there anything else? I mean, you said that he plays pretty often in the comics, right?
Mm-hmm. Not often. He's around quite a bit. I think chronologically he is dead. Let me find out. Make sure. I think in the comics he might have died. Is he deceased? I don't know if he's dead or not. It's been a couple of times
in the MCU. We don't know. I mean,
MCU
presumably he's alive.
Yeah,
right?
there's a whole bunch of stuff of that. We'll get to that later. But in the MCU, he's technically alive. But in the comics, I think he's dead technically.
Yeah, in this movie, I mean, he gets zapped off to the great beyond in this movie.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And Marvel effectively puts Red Skull into cold storage for some point, 5 movies from now, maybe more.
Yeah.
And he does nothing until he's needed later on.
Mm-hmm. And I thought that was clever. I thought we would have seen him more. I thought we would have seen him sooner. I thought we would have seen him in the next movie, but I was kind of disappointed that we didn't get. I thought Red Skull was going to be a major villain in the last movies, and for whatever reason they didn't do that. I've heard a rumor that he's going to be in the next Captain America. I find that hard to believe. But there's a rumor. I think if that's true, that'd be awesome. Like a black Captain America going against a Nazi is like what everybody wants to see, right? But I don't know if that's true or not. We'll have to wait and see.
That's a good idea. I think one reason maybe he went into cold storage for so long is that I was doing a little bit of reading, and apparently Hugo Weaving was just kind of meh about the whole experience.
I believe that, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe he just didn't really want to come back and reprise that role.
Yeah, Hugo Weaving, he's also kind of getting older, and like I just kind of feel like he's never really been 100% into any of his classic movies. He did The Matrix, but he was like kind of about it. He did Lord of the Rings, but he was kind of I think he's just kind of about doing his job. I think he's like, I seriously do think that. Like when I read articles and stuff about him, it's just like, I'll do it. It's fine.
I mean, he's so good at it, though.
He's so good at it. But I think he's just kind of done. He's like, oh, whatever. I'm fine. Like, I'm kind of sick of doing this. Right. And like, you have to think, if you're a trained actor, like doing Shakespeare and stuff and doing all these high level plays, and then someone's like, hey, I want you to play Red Skull. It's like, after a while, you're just like, this sucks. I don't want to do it. But yeah, I think he did a great job in the movie. I loved him. Right.
But he was Agent Smith in The Matrix.
All 3 movies,
And in this movie, he's Joe Smith is basically the translation of his name.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Huh. So same last name, basically.
I learned something new. I did not know that.
All right. Here's another. I'm full of not really questions for this movie.
Sure. Go for it.
Okay, who's the bowler hat guy? That is a question, but it leads.
I'm glad you brought this up. Yeah, so his name is Dum Dum Dogan. He's part of the Howling Commandos. He's first seen in the comics in Sergeant Fury, 1963. And I was thinking about this today. The comics, so Steve Rogers disappears in 1944. Okay, let's just say that. And then the comics, Marvel Comics, starts getting up again in 1962 with Fantastic Four, Spider-Man, all these other guys. They bring back Captain America around that same period, but it's only a 20-year difference. So Captain America has been in the ice for 20 years. That's not long. And so when the Howling Commandos was brought up in 1963, Nick Fury was alive and he was like doing army stuff. Actually, Captain America and Nick Fury knew each other. It's a whole thing. And the Howling Commandos was kind of part of that tradition with Captain America and all the other guys. And so all the guys that were in the movie is based off of comic book guys. Like the whole crew, the Howling Commandos, are based off of the Howling Commandos. They actually is really interesting. The Howling Commandos, they became pretty popular in the comics for quite a while. And comic books like referenced them and talked about them in different ways. But in the movies, it was just like it was assumed that after Captain America died and after the war was over, their job was over too. So, but yeah, you know who plays him in the movie? God, what's that?
He's very familiar looking, but I don't know.
Neil McDonough. Neil McDonough. He is so good. He played a villain in Arrow. He also played that same villain in Legends of Tomorrow. He also played in Star Trek First Contact. He's just a great actor. Like, he's just really good. And I liked him in this movie. Whenever I see him on TV, I'm like, hey, it's Neil. Because he's just he's like very unique looking. He's a good actor. I think he's great.
So here's why I thought to ask you.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry.
Him.
Real quick. Neil McDonough was also in what's that show's name? The Army movie, the World War II show from HBO. Big deal.
Band of Brothers.
Yes, he was also in Band of Brothers.
Yeah, that's probably how they picked him out for this movie.
Yep,
There's
I
some
agree.
Band of Brothers-ish scenes in this movie.
100%.
Yeah, so the reason I thought to ask you about him is he has this one line, and he says he's talking to a Hydra guard in prison. He says, "You know, Fritz, one of these days I'm going to have a stick of my own." That has to be a callback to a comic book.
No.
No?
No.
You're killing me. He doesn't like carry a stick in the Howling Commandos or anything like that?
No. He has a hat.
Right.
That's it.
All right.
I like that though. I
totally misread that. It sounded like from the comics he's known for having a stick. So we're going to wink at the audience.
He's known for wearing that hat, having a red mustache, and being fat. That's what he's known for.
All right. Strike one for me. All right.
Okay, strike one. Are we doing strikes? I didn't know that. That's actually kind of fun.
No, but I'm allowed to have one, I guess.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
All right, keep hitting me.
Okay. Hydra's plan in this movie is to basically attack everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
They don't really. I don't know. They don't really go into why, or at least I didn't pick up on it. But I guess you said already that's really what they were trying to do, is just kill a lot of people.
Yeah, it actually is based off of. I think either it's based off of a comic book story, or maybe the comics kind of talked about this at some point. But there's a similar plot in the comics as well, the same kind of plot, and they just had to get Captain America in the air. So the story was that there was a flight, like some kind of plane thing going off with a bomb, right? Captain America jumps for it. He misses it, and he falls into the ocean and freezes. Bucky, his partner, actually jumps on the plane and is able to detonate it, and we think that he's dead at the end. I've talked about this before, how Bucky used to be the only comic book character that was dead and staying dead, but he obviously doesn't.
Right.
So they kill off Bucky, in the middle of the movie, and so they just had to get Captain America in the air so he could crash and then be frozen in the Arctic. That's all they needed. So I think that's why they did the plane thing, just to have that. But it does have some comic book significance. Not much, but it does have some.
Was that crash in the Arctic or Greenland or Canada?
The Arctic.
Do you know?
The Arctic.
Okay.
Like the North Pole.
Right. Where Santa lives. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. That's where he lives.
Yeah. So, how did you feel when you already said like Bucky and Steve, they both kind of go down on the plane in the comics? How did you feel with the train scene in this movie?
I don't know. I'm not sure. So when they, if you remember correctly, Steve, Captain America, rescues Bucky from Zola's lab. And that character never really acted the same in the movie. If you notice that he was a little off the whole time. I don't know if you know for sure, but he just kind of felt, because like at the beginning of the movies, he was kind of happy, kind of like, a little jolly. But then when Steve rescued him, he kind of seemed a little off and mildly jealous. And so in that scene where he grabs the shield to protect himself and he gets like pushed out of the train, I guess it was a way to give Steve Rogers some kind of emotional push to finish what he's doing. And like all the comic book people knew that he wasn't dead. We knew that. But I'm not sure if they handled it correctly. I kind of wish they handled it a little differently. I like Barnes. In the original comics, this is really interesting. In the original comics, Bucky's far younger. He's a child, basically, like a young teen, maybe 15 at the oldest. And he actually, in the comics, they kind of did some retcon stuff for this. Captain America like trained him to be a partner, but secretly the government told Bucky that he was going to do more Black Ops stuff that Captain America wouldn't know about. So he was like a secret agent kind of deal. And so it's really he has a darker past. So I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I don't know how I feel about how they handled Bucky in this movie. It's fine. Looking back now, the Winter Soldier is such a big part of the MCU movies and the MCU in general. He's a huge part. I guess part of that is because he was so popular in comics, and they're doing a really good job with him in the movies. But I kind of feel like they killed him off a little too soon. I don't know.
For someone that doesn't read the comic books, I thought it was emotionally like it plays out really well. It was, it's a huge letdown seeing his friend die like that.
Yeah, but for me, I saw it and I was like, well, he's going to be back in the next movie. We all know that.
Yeah, see, I didn't know he was going to be back ever. So I thought that was just it,
Yeah,
and it's a pretty, like, it's it's not played lightly or anything. It's
yeah.
I did think it was weird. Now that you mentioned that Bucky was a little bit off ever since he was rescued by Cap from the Hydra base. That did you rewatch the movie recently?
Yeah, saw it last week. Watched it again last week.
So Bucky seals himself off in one of the train cars from Cap.
Yeah.
And I can't figure out why he would have done that.
Did he seal himself off, or did he just seal itself? I thought he sealed itself.
I think he closed the door.
No, I thought the door was closed on him.
I have to go back and watch, but I thought he closed the door.
No, I think the movie kind of wants you to think that he could be like turned just a tad bit, but when I watched that, I just thought the door, like, it was a trap. So Zola's trapping them and he seals it off. So that's what I thought.
You might be right.
I didn't think it was anything nefarious.
Okay. All right. All right. We talked about Hydra's plans. Okay. So Captain gets, we talked about the plane, goes down. He's in the Arctic where Santa is, and he's frozen for almost 70 years.
Yeah. In the original comic, he was frozen for 20 years until the Avengers found him. But in the MCU, he's frozen for 70 years. Yeah.
And that's just because they needed to pick up, in the comics, they wanted to sell comic books. And
I mean, Captain America came out in the... Yeah, well, I didn't have enough time to look at all the legal issues. If I remember correctly, Marvel Comics bought the rights to Captain America and all those characters from the old comics. And that's why they had him, and that's how they brought him back So yeah, they're totally going to sell a lot of comics with Captain America. But I think Stan Lee and all those Marvel dudes just bought the rights to them and then used them when they created the Marvel universe with the Avengers and stuff like that. So there's some legal stuff that I'm not 100% sure of. I should have researched this more. But there was a whole group of characters like Namor, the Human Torch, and a couple others that Marvel just bought and owned and then incorporated into their universe.
That was the Human Torch was a bit of trivia that I read up on. Apparently, earlier in this movie, there's I guess in the museum they have a standee of the Human Torch in the museum.
I remember that, yes.
And Chris Evans played the Human Torch in an earlier Fantastic Four movie.
Yeah. Well, see, this is some nerd. Are you ready to get really nerdy? Because it's about to get super nerdy in here.
Yeah, I'm ready for it. Let's go.
Nerd.
Super nerdy.
The original Human Torch fought in World War II, and he was a robot. And he has no real connections to the.
Hang on a second. The Human Torch was a robot.
Yeah, they call him the Human Torch, but he was a robot. He was an android. I'm not sure why they call him the Human Torch when he was a robot.
Right,
anyway, but he has no real connection to Johnny Storm of the Fantastic Four. They just look similar, but I forget his name. But it's he's a whole thing, man. And I'm not sure. He was created by someone in a lab, and he ended up fighting the Nazis. So it's a whole thing. It's actually
they do in fact have the same name. They're both Human Torches, right? Yeah,
they're both human. They're both the Human Torch, but I mean, one is part of Fantastic Four. He was created by a science experiment, and another one's a robot created by a dude to fight Nazis.
A robot called the Human Torch.
Yeah, I don't make it up. That's how it is. That's you have to respect the lore. You can't question it.
I think I kind of like this better, the Human Torch robot. I like that better than the telepathic bird.
Yeah, it makes more sense.
It's kind of a callback to Daft Punk a little bit, or maybe foreshadowing for Daft Punk. I don't know. Inspiration. Okay.
Hey, I'm trying to find the publisher for the original Captain America. I'm going to look this up. But yeah, if I remember correctly, Marvel, so these people bought all these rights to these old comic books from this publisher, and that's how they got Captain America and some other people.
Yeah, I read that Stan Lee didn't create Captain America, so that goes with what you're saying. They bought the rights to Captain America. But what Stan Lee did create is Captain America throwing the shield and then the shield coming back to him.
I didn't know that. That's pretty cool.
So, all right, I'm all out of questions for this movie. Is there anything else you're dying to tell us about?
I'm not dying to say anything.
Eager? Are you eager to tell us anything?
Yes, there are some things that I'm eager to talk about. So the movie itself, it does an excellent job setting up some of the different kind of themes and stuff that we're going to see in the next movies. So for example, the Tesseract is going to lead to the Avengers, which we're going to talk about next. And so that is helpful, right? That without Captain America, that couldn't have happened. That it also creates kind of like the dynamics of S.H.I.E.L.D. It gives us a little history. It gives us it gives us connections. Did you watch the post-credit scene? I hope you obviously did, right?
I did.
Yeah. So that was cool with Nick Fury showing up and everything else. So the movie's important. And I think it's if you watch this movie, you're going to get a better sense of how the MCU is going to work. There is a love story, but I think the female lead is treated with respect. And we're not going to get this again for a while.
Yeah, it's a touching love story in the movie. It's not.
Yeah, it's a touching. It's a touching love story.
It's not just all of a sudden these two characters that really have no reason to have affection for each other are in love. There's some build up to it.
Yeah. Yeah, and one could argue that they had that same affection before he got all super big and tough.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I mean, I think they had affection for each other mentally. Physically, it was a little different. I mean, he's not exactly a great looking dude as a scrawny, sickly kid, but when he got all muscly, she's like, oh, okay, now this might work.
Yeah.
Anyway, the movie's got the right tones. I feel like it respects like the comic lore. The fight scenes are really awesome. So everything's working. So like I can't really say that for Iron Man 2, Iron Man 2, and even Thor. I can't say that 100% yet. But I can say Captain America does a good job getting us ramped up for the Avengers 100%. None of this will happen without Chris Evans. He's a fantastic character. I mean, character. He's a fantastic actor. He did a brilliant job with Steve Rogers. Like he no one else can play him in my opinion. Like that's it. He's the only one.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's such a great movie. What's your favorite part of the movie? Like, what's your favorite scene?
You know what?
I'm putting you in the spot.
No, I've got an answer ready to go. I really enjoyed those kind of, I guess you call them vignettes. The little scenes of Captain America and the Howling Commandos. Now that I know their name, doing their operations, doing their missions.
That was cool, man. Yeah, no, that's they see. It's so smart. It's like we don't have time to go into detail about their missions, but they create. Okay, we have these bases. These guys are going to go and shut these bases down, and we have a cool montage of them doing it. And it takes like 10 minutes? Not even 10 minutes, like 5 minutes. And it's kind of like when did Captain America? When did Captain America become a good fighter? Was in those montage scenes. You know, at first he was kind of clumsy, but at the end he's throwing that shield perfectly. He's doing all some crazy stuff. And so yeah, that the movie just does a good job with pacing, with using their time wisely. The script was good. It's just a great movie, 100%. Yeah, and those vignettes were fun. I agree.
If
100%.
Marvel ever wants to make some more money, just do a TV series of like taking those vignettes, pay Chris Evans whatever he needs to come back and do, you know, Captain America the TV series. Oh man, that would be so great.
That would be. I would watch the Howling Commandos. Like, you know, like what they did after he left. You know, that would be fun. That'd be a lot of fun, actually. Right. Yeah, that'd be fun. We haven't mentioned Zola yet. He is a comic. He's a definitely Arnim Zola is a huge comic character. He is his comic character is Mordor. I think his name is Mordock. We'll see him in Captain America: Winter Soldier. But I thought he was Toby Jones did a great job with him. He's definitely a comic actor.
That's the smaller guy that works alongside Red Skull.
The little scientist. Yeah, at a certain point, he will go on to form AIM, I think. But I think they did a really good job with him and kind of using him, like kind of showing the way he is. Like, if you watch the movie, there was a scene where he was in a microscope or something, and his face was kind of enlarged.
That's his first scene. That's his introduction.
Yeah. So the actual character, he has a huge head but a really small body, so it's kind of funny. But I thought that was comic accurate. I mean, the whole thing was just well done, and I'll just have this last takeaway. The movie is starting to connect to more obscure, small things from the Marvel Universe that's going to pay off way, way later, and also things that I don't think the Avengers is going to take advantage of. I think that the Avengers is going to be a huge commercial hit for Marvel. But Captain America: First Avengers is their best movie so far, and it's going to be that way for a while.
Yeah, I agree. All right, Zola, you said he goes on to create AIM.
I think it's AIM.
Is that like AIM?
I think it's AIM. Yeah, they were actually mentioned in Iron Man 3 when we have to watch that terrible thing. Oh God, I don't want to do it.
We got to.
I know. Hang on.
Yeah, I have no idea what AIM is.
He was a scientist. He was a scientist for Hydra, but he also worked with AIM.
Okay.
Advanced something mechanics.
All right. Does that have anything to do with Vision?
No.
Okay. All right. Shot in the dark, but no. Okay. All right, it's time. What do you think of the post-credit scene?
I thought it was perfect. It was a good post credit scene that I thought it was clever that they were trying to trick him by playing an old baseball game. And he actually went to that game. It was kind of funny. And so he's like, no, this isn't real. I'm being manipulated.
Right.
And I also liked how as soon as he came out the ice, he was super tough. Like those two guards came in, he just like wipes them out and just like runs out. That's awesome. I forgot to mention a lot of the things that you're seeing from now on with Shield and the Avengers is coming from the Ultimate Universe, not the original, not the original universe. So we got the 616 universe, and you have the Ultimate Universe that we talked about before. You like Shield didn't form the Avengers, and they had nothing to do with the Avengers, and we'll talk more about that with our next podcast. So with Nick Fury showing up, talking to Steve Rogers, that is straight from the Ultimate line. The original comics, the Avengers found him in the ice, and the government has nothing to do with it.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, and it's kind of annoying at this point too. I don't like how heavy the Shield stuff is in these movies. I understand why they probably have to do it. But I mean, it's a lot of that post 9/11 stuff, like a big government agency protecting us from terrorists.
Right.
But I'm just not feeling. I'm kind of getting sick of it at this point. I'm kind of glad that the Winter Soldier gets rid of it. We'll talk more about that.
There's good commentary on Shield and all of that in later Captain America movies that I really like.
Yeah, actually. Yeah, I think the Russo brothers did more work with Winter Soldier than I thought they did. It is kind of an interesting commentary. You're right. So we'll just have to wait to talk about that. Okay. But yeah, Captain America's a great movie. 100%. I love them all. I wish that we got more Haley Atwell in the other movies, but we take what he can get.
Speaking of, did you ever see the Peggy Carter, or is it Agent Carter TV series?
I have not, but I heard good things. People seem to like it. Did you watch it?
I haven't. I think I saw one episode and that's it.
I might watch them. It's on Disney Plus, probably, right?
I have no idea, but hopefully,
I have to check it out. Yeah, I have to check it out.
All right, so the next movie we're going to be talking about is Marvel's The Avengers.
Yeah. I feel like I could talk about this movie a good 2 hours, but yeah, I think at this point I'm just being a fanboy about it. So,
right.
But yeah, we're talking about the big one now, man. The Avengers, the one, like all the movies have been leading up to this, so we're about to see the big finale, the big good stuff.
Do you have any idea why the official title of that movie, at least on Wikipedia, is Marvel's The Avengers?
There is another old TV show called The Avengers. I think it's a British TV show.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if that was why, or if there was another comic book called The Avengers.
No, they probably wanted to make sure that when you went to the DVD store, you got the right movie.
Gotcha.
Because there is another one called The Avengers.
Yeah, that was a British TV show. Yeah, maybe movie too. Yeah.
Yeah, they made a movie with Uma Thurman. Yeah, she was in it.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yep.
She wore some really tight. The whole reason to go see the movie is because she wore some really tight black outfit. That was
all I know is that in the TV series they drove a Lotus Elan, I think.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right, so that's our next movie, Marvel's The Avengers, or just The Avengers.
Yeah, man, get ready for that spectacle. I can't wait. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah. All right. So, should people tell their friends about the podcast at all, or?
They should definitely tell their friends about our podcast, and they should also follow us on Twitter. What's the Twitter handle?
@Super Sideshow.
Yeah, and follow them. And if you want to, you can follow me on Twitter at JSlacks, JAYSLACKS. What's your Twitter handle, Mike?
It's MIKBRE, but nothing special there. Just random mutterings.
You have some good tweets. Yeah, follow us on Twitter. And also tell your friends. You can find us everywhere there's a podcast, I think. Pretty easy. I actually listen to us on YouTube. I'm not sure why. That's where I go to listen to it.
Okay. Yeah, I do the Apple Podcast app. But we're pretty much everywhere. So you can follow us, you can subscribe, you can rate and review. And please do.
Yeah, and also if we got something wrong, please tell us. Or if you have questions that you want us to dig into, also tell us. I think that's good. Like, yeah, if you got any questions, let us know, because I wouldn't mind going back and answering some of these questions and digging more into comic lore stuff. It's always fun for me, and I'm looking forward to the Avengers because that's about 60 years worth of comic stuff smashed into 2 hours, so it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Right? Yeah. No, I think that would be really cool if we get enough questions to like pull together for a
question
episode,
episode. That'd be fun. So yeah, make it happen, listeners. Make it happen.